Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Lodi Optimist and Lodi School District Candidate Forum for the State Senate District 14 in Lodi. We'd like to thank everyone for attending. And Mr. Jelinek, could you tell us who's joining us today from the school?
Sure. We have two Spanish classes, Spanish 4 and Spanish 5 classes. We have two Spanish classes over here. We also have some seniors that are here that have senior release, so they're here to watch the class.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jelinek. And we'd like to thank Mr. Jelinek and Mr. Breinig and Mr. Marshall from the school district for their assistance in making this possible. This is, I think, the 27th or 28th year that we have held these forums in concert with our friends at the high school. We are, as the Lodi Optimist Club, we're the friend of youth, and part of that includes civic education. So we're really delighted that you are all with us to participate in this Lodi tradition here today, as well as the candidates. And I'd like to introduce the candidates at this time. To my far left is Joan Ballwig. Joan hails from Partyville, and she is the Republican candidate in this year's race. And to my immediate left is Sarah Kieski. Sarah is a Lodi resident, and she even has children attending schools here, I think, and so she doesn't want to embarrass herself today. But we'll see how that goes. Congratulations to both of you on your candidacies, and we will begin with opening statements. The opening statements are 2 minutes, time limit each, and we'll begin with Joan Ballwig. Joan?
Well, thank you, Bill, and the optimists and the students that are here today to listen to democracy in action, actually. So, as it was mentioned, I'm Joan Ballwig. I live in Partyville with my husband, Tom. We've been married just over 50 years. I have 3 kids that grew to be adults, and also 4 grandkids right now. So I started out my professional career as an elementary school teacher, teaching first grade. But my husband and I always wanted to get into business. And because he came from a farm over in DeForest, we decided to look into agriculture. And so we have been in a farm equipment business, John Deere business, for the last 47 years, growing that business from a very small one into a major player. Working with farmers every day, now over 50 employees, providing them with good paying, family supporting jobs. But because of my interest in business in our small town, I became involved in our Chamber of Commerce. And our Chamber of Commerce decided to do a revitalization project for our small community. And my peers in the Chamber asked me to be the point person for that particular project. Once the nonprofit ideas were exhausted, several of us ran, and I won a seat on the city council and then later as mayor. So I spent 10 years in local government. And after a few years sticking around the house, because I had kids in high school and we were hosting foreign exchange students, when there was an opening for the state legislature, people came to me and said, why don't you run for that state legislative seat? You did well as our mayor in leading us there. And so I've been doing that now, both as a representative and now as your state senator.
Thank you, Joan. Sarah?
Well, thank you so much, both to the Lodi School District, to the students that are here tonight, to Optimist Club, thank you for having us. My name is Sarah Kieski, and I was born and raised in Wisconsin. I grew up on a small dairy farm in Cashton, Wisconsin, and went off and studied and became a mental health provider. I've been serving in that way because service has been a really important part of my life. I learned really good values living on the farm, such as service, hard work, and compassion for others. And so that took me into a career of mental health counseling, individuals, couples, and families for the last 25 years. But I've also done side projects that were really oriented to helping the community wherever I lived. So I've been a Girl Scout leader, I've taught knitting, I've been a substitute teacher, I've done all kinds of different things. But when my husband and I moved to Lodi in 2017, we picked Lodi because it was such a small community with really great values, a connectedness amongst people, and a place that we really wanted to raise our kids. As you heard, 3 of our kids go here now in high school. We've been really proud to be here. But in 2017, unfortunately, my husband ended up with a medical condition. He had cancer of the throat, which meant I had to work full-time. But what that offered an opportunity to do is to open a small private practice here in Lodi so that I could make mental health services available for our local citizens. So that has been something I'm real proud of, having that small business here in town. I now have started also a nonprofit called Lift Lodi to help our community because, again, helping our community is one of the most important things to me.
Thank you, Sarah. That concludes our candidate opening statements, and now it's up to you, the audience. We ask that you come forward to the microphones. They're set up in the front of the room, and please be direct with your question and identify yourself, please, before you ask your question.
My name's Patty Herman. I'm from Lodi. My question is, where do you stand on funding for schools, especially public funding for private schools?
Thanks, Patty. The first question directed to initially to Sarah Kieski. Sarah?
So we have not had our public schools funded well enough. Since 2010, approximately, we have not kept up with inflation. If we had, we would be receiving $3,300 more per student. That's a remarkable amount of money that we are missing in our school financing. So we need to change the school funding formula so that we have more money coming toward our schools. We do have a budget surplus right now of $4.5 billion that we're hoping to make amenable to making service, or again, adding to the budget here for schools. But regarding private vouchers, I personally do not support them. I believe that our public monies should be for public schools, and I believe there should be the right to have private education. I think that's a wonderful opportunity, but I don't believe that we should be financing that with public dollars.
Joan.
Sure. There we go. So first of all, yes, we do need to make sure that our public schools are funded adequately. Here in Lodi, about 50% of the school funding of around $16,700 per pupil is what it's costing you to pay for schools. Here in Lodi, 50% of that is coming from the state. Roughly 50% is coming from other resources and your property tax dollars. And so the funding formula is very complicated and very difficult. And the many times that it's been looked at to try to adjust, we find that there are school districts that are winners and school districts that are losers. And so what we've done in the legislature, and I've supported over the number of years that I've been in the legislature, to focus on raising the per pupil allocation per student. So in this last budget, for the last year and for this year, it was raised by $325 per student, which means it doesn't matter. It's not going to get cut by 50% just because you're at a 50% equalization level. You're going to get the whole $325 per student numbers, just like the city of Milwaukee is. Also to continue to increase those categorical aids for special needs students or for sparsity aid, and target them, especially for our rural communities.
Thank you. Next question directed initially to Joan Balwig.
Tess Carr of Lodi. We are in the context of a national election that seems unprecedented. We've had a last-minute switch in the Democratic nominee. We have thousands of leading national security advisors, economists, Republican Party members referring to the other candidate as not suitable for leading our country because he's a danger. How do you feel about the state of our country right now, and how do you feel about the direction of your party?
So, Tess, thank you for being a part of government yourself, local government. So when you say your party, are you directing it just to Republicans, or are you directing it to both parties? Okay, so I think it's only fair to say that both parties have some rhetoric that they should be tempering, that we should be talking about the policies that each party should be promoting. It shouldn't be calling names. It shouldn't be misrepresenting what the other side can or cannot do or what they're intending to do. So definitely, I think this has brought us to a bit of a fever pitch. Probably our history teacher can tell us, not since the Civil War, when we actually went to war over things. I certainly hope that people can take a step back and really think about not as much the personalities as the policies and what we've gotten into over the last couple of years. We need to tame inflation. It's slowing down, but it still is very expensive to live these days. In the fourth grade presentations I do a role play on what bill would you like to see done, and every time I do this, kids are saying, how can we reduce the price of gas? How can we reduce the price of food? Those are kitchen table issues that we need to be addressing.
Sarah?
I have never aspired to be in politics. I've always wanted to be somebody that served the community, and so this is my way of really being a public servant. As I look at the Democratic Party right now, I see future orientation, I see problem solving, I see the Inflation Reduction Act, I see the infrastructure bill. I'm excited about the joyfulness that is being brought forward with the party, seeing what we can do, how we can lift one another up, how we can hopefully help the middle class, do good things for more people, not less. So quite frankly, I feel that the Democratic Party is holding on to values that are about small rural areas too, including us, and making sure that, again, as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. I think that is the orientation right now, and I'm proud of that.
Thank you. Next question directed initially to Sarah Kieski.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Wood. I'm a senior here.
Could you speak up a little closer to the mic, please, sir?
Hi, I'm Lawrence Wood. I'm a senior here. My question is, do you plan to vote to protect women's reproductive health by putting into law legal abortion?
Thank you. I love having a student with a question. And so I think I heard it, asking whether or not I support reproductive freedoms. I do. I believe that reproductive freedoms is a very important option for our females. I have identical twin girls that are 14 right now. And my hope is that they never have to require abortion care. That is my hope. But I do want it to be available to our young people in case they need to have abortion care. There are many situations, including someone in this audience that came up to me and talked to me about being molested by a family member starting when she was very young. She had her period when she was 10 years old and could have gotten pregnant. That is a situation that is unfortunately not uncommon, but exists in our world. And I want to make sure that people have the right to make choices over their body and to make choices over their health care when it might be needed in extreme situations.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. The first thing I want to say is every woman's story is different. I myself have 3 kids that grew up to be happy and healthy to a point, but suffered several miscarriages. Had a little girl who was only at about 25 weeks along, but that little girl was perfect in every way, from the curly dark hair to the cute little toes, and she looked just like her older sister. I understand from my experiences what this means and what the difficulties is in managing your family and planning. And first of all, before you get to the abortion, first of all, I totally agree that women should be participating or using whatever type of contraception processes that they are comfortable with, hopefully in consultation with their doctors, of course, understanding that the women's health is the number one thing that we need to worry about. That in family planning, if you are someone who wants to grow your family and use some of the processes that are moving forward, such as IVF or any other processes, that is your ability. But I do believe that the woman's health is the most important thing that is important for any age, in any situation.
Next question directed initially to Joan Balwick, please.
Thank you. My name is Ann Groves Lloyd. I live here in the city of Lodi. I'm also the mayor here in Lodi. We're in the middle of our budget process, and to say it's been difficult to balance budgets for the last 14 years is an understatement. I just want to know your thoughts on shared revenue. I will acknowledge last year we got some additional shared revenue for the city of Lodi. That was about $84,000. Our insurance costs for our employees went up 25% last year. That more than ate up that $84,000. And that doesn't get to any maintenance, any new projects we want to do in the city. This year, that shared revenue went up about $2,000. Our health insurance is going up 11% again this year. I just want to know what your thoughts are on shared revenue and what you think we might be able to do to more equitably fund our local municipalities so we can provide the services that our residents expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your service to Lodi. We've seen you at the Capitol advocating for a number of things also, so appreciate your interaction. So for everyone who's here, last budget, we did a major reset when it comes to shared revenue. As the mayor said, a little over $84,000, increased it by 76%. And we made the promise that 20 cents out of every dollar that's taken in sales tax will go into shared revenue formula. So they will continue to get increases. Haven't gotten those numbers yet. I presume it's going to be more than $2,000, but I don't know. I don't know how much either. We've asked Fiscal Bureau to give us those numbers. They don't have them ready yet. So yes, we have been trying to do that. We have anticipated at the end of this next biennium, right now, $3.5 billion in surplus. The number that came out yesterday was for the end of this fiscal year, but it's 3.5 for the next budget year. So we need to make sure that we can keep providing the services that are responsible in our communities, our schools, our roadways. Those are things that are most important. But we also have heard from people that they are suffering from overtaxing and the inflationary costs, all considerations we have to take care of.
Sarah.
Thanks for the question. As we know, our municipalities do so much important work for us. They're helping with our sanitation, our EMS, our firefighters, our police. We have to fund them. And we've been in a shortfall for over 30 years, being able to fund them. We have not gotten enough of our part of the revenue from sales tax, and we need to increase that so that our small municipalities have the money to be able to keep up with the increased costs. Even the increased cost of insurance for staff members has gone up. They have to be able to pay for that. And we want those services in our small towns. So in order to have them, we have to pay for them. But that doesn't mean that we should have increased property taxes over and over again. They shouldn't have to go to referendums. We should be able to have additional revenue sources through the state, and we should be able to have more of that budget surplus, again, spent on our small municipalities so that we have a more equitable and sustainable way to keep our municipalities strong and vibrant economically.
Thank you. Next question, directed initially to Sarah Kieski.
Many of us will soon
Could we have your name, please?
Oh, Michaela.
Thank you, Michaela.
Many of us will soon be embarking on our college careers, but are concerned about the high cost of tuition. If elected, can you help people in my position so that we don't accumulate so much debt?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. So I have six children. 3 of them are in college. One has finished, 2 are in college right now, and 3 will be hopefully going to college. And so the cost of college is really a big issue to me too. We're a middle-class family, so we have been asking our kids to have jobs starting at 14 years old. My son works at Fitz's cleaning dishes to help provide some of that financial means, because it is unsustainable right now to be able to afford these educational prices. I do understand that we are struggling to fund our 2-year colleges. We've had the UW Richland Center close down. We've had Baraboo U have to consolidate from 5 buildings to 1, which is a travesty because those are avenues for rural people to be able to start their education at a much more equitably manageable way. So that's one thing. We need to be funding our 2-year colleges. We need to be considering things that help tuition, including some new legislation that is allowing state residents to go to the UW schools, right? If they're in the higher levels of their class. I think that's great because we really want our Wisconsin kids to be able to stay in Wisconsin for schooling, and there's more ideas. I have to stop.
Joan?
Thank you. So good luck, Michaela, when you step out into the big wide world and head off for your next step in education. We have so many more opportunities these days, to access education. Here at Lodi, I'm sure you have courses. I'm sure you have dual credit. I'm sure you have partnered with different colleges and universities, so you can get some credit under your belt before you actually get out the door, which is something we've been advocating for and of increasing over the last several terms. We have opportunities at our technical colleges at very reasonable rates to get some of those beginning baccalaureate classes, the same kind of classes that were at the 2-year campuses. There are a lot of technical college campuses around the state. I'd encourage you to take a look at those also as a very affordable way to get started in college. We continue to try to use the dual credit going forward. Now, our university system is funded by the taxpayers. They're asking for another $850 million out of our state budget this year. That's about the same thing that they were getting overall last year. We've put in tuition freezes over the year, and UW is one of the most lowest price Big Ten schools that are around.
Okay, thank you. The next question directed initially to Joan.
Hi, I'm Doug Maring. Live in the Reedsburg School District, and my question is concerning Medicaid expansion. Currently, we're one of only 11 states that do not accept Medicaid expansion. And what is your feelings as far as what are the positives of either not accepting it or accepting that expansion money?
Thanks, Doug. So I think, first of all, we need to understand what expansion means. So in Wisconsin, we have no enrollment caps for anyone that is at 100% of the federally poverty limit or below. Some of those expansion states do have limits. Expansion means going to 138% of the federal poverty limit, and so that is about 90,000 people. Of those, the majority of those are eligible at that current income level to go on to one of the federal marketplace programs that's subsidized by the federal government and would be at no additional cost to them. Now, the other thing that I have tried to advocate for, and we got very close this particular term, was an expansion for coverage for postpartum mothers. So currently, anyone who is eligible for Badger Care is covered up to 300% of the federal poverty limit while they're pregnant and 60 days postpartum. My efforts have been in order to combat maternal mortality and maternal morbidity issues to expand that to 12 months so that they don't have to make any changes to their health care program while they're bringing up that little one. This past year, we had 2/3 of the legislators as sponsors and 45 advocates. We passed it overwhelmingly in the Senate.
Thank you, Joan. Sarah?
As Joan said, approximately 90,000 people, if we expanded Medicaid, would have better medical access to care. And that's really important. One of the things that's also really important about expanding this is that our rural communities really depend on our small clinics, our small hospitals, really depend on Medicaid money. Many of our rural communities have people that are on Medicaid, and so that is what keeps those smaller hospitals and communities clinics, viable. We've seen some having to close down now in the Eau Claire area, Chippewa Falls area, and that is a travesty, and that could have been somewhat helped by having this Medicaid expansion. We also have money in the U.S. government that we would be able to receive if we received the Medicaid expansion. That is just staying there, waiting for us, that we've been putting in, but we are not getting back. And so it would also help our budget in addition.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question directed initially to Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sydney Flick, a local farmer, obviously. My question would be, both of you have rural backgrounds. There are issues that directly impact farmers that a lot of people, even if you live in a rural community, don't think about. What would be two of the top issues that you would fight for people within production agriculture in your area?
Am I first? I think so.
Sarah, you're up.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that question. I grew up on a small dairy farm in Cashton. And so I've been really interested in talking to farmers now. My dad farmed few years ago now, and there's a lot of merging of farms into the bigger automated organizations. And while that is fine, I really want to protect our small rural family farms if I can. And so one of the things that I've found people talking a lot about is just roads, making sure that we have good investment in our roads so that we can transport our goods from the farms to market, making sure that we also are supporting supporting the mental health of our farmers. As a mental health provider myself, that has been something I've heard a lot about. There's a deep sense of isolation and despair because there's so much uncertainty with farming, and making sure that we're addressing mental health issues, I think would be important, one of the more important pieces of legislation I'd like to see.
Joan?
I'm going to focus in strictly on the agriculture part. I currently serve as the Agriculture and Tourism Chair in the State Senate. I lead our team on investments in the budget for agriculture. And one of the things that we have been doing over the last several years especially was to expand that opportunity for our farmers to have better markets so that they can, if they're going into a niche market, that it is something that is helpful for them. So some of the things we've done, because farmers are the #1 stewards of our land, we've invested more money in our county conservation departments so that they can work with farmers on their farmer-led watershed projects. I've led investment in agricultural exports that we're seeing is really benefiting, especially our dairy industry, but is benefiting farmers all across the state. Wisconsin is one of the few states that hasn't reduced their exports where most of the country has. We've also worked on meat processor grants. We have so many more folks that are looking to do market direct, if they're beef farmers, those kinds of things. So there are a number of incentive grants that we have provided to help farmers on a daily basis.
Thank you, Joan. Next question directed first to Joan.
Hello, my name is Michaela Dockel, and I'm a junior here. My generation is anxious over the state of our environment and worried about what is in store for us 10 or 20 years down the road. What are your goals for addressing environmental issues if you are elected?
Thank you, Michaela. And so I mentioned one of the things, farmers are, of course, our #1 stewards of our land here. We are helping them be better stewards through efforts through our county conservation. A lot of what happens with air and water quality is coming from our federal partners, and our DNR is making sure that that is happening. I think the #1 thing that has come about is the question regarding what we didn't know too many years ago was a problem, and that's PFAS. And so 2 budgets ago, I led the effort to make sure that PFAS for our local municipalities, there were PFAS firefighting foam, and so I led the effort for the grant program to make sure that we were recovering from our local fire departments that product so it could be properly disposed of. And then there's $125 million that we put aside in the budget to really work on this project. Unfortunately, it was vetoed by the governor. The reason being we found that some of the sludge that comes out of your sewer treatment plants is then land spread. And unfortunately, unbeknown to those farmers, unbeknown to the DNR who gave those permits, that was contaminated with PFAS. We don't think that those are the folks that should be responsible for the cleanup. It should be a state project.
Sarah.
I actually hear about concerns of the environment from my teenage clients all the time. And I think that's really important to recognize, even for us that are older adults, that they really care about the environment. They're concerned about their future. This might seem like an existential concern that is far off, but our young people really feel it. This is contributing to significant anxiety in our young people. And anxiety and mental health issues for our young people is something that I'm really concerned about. So I do believe we need to address the Issues of carbon emissions. We need to have better renewable energy sources that we're considering. We need to look at wind power. We need to look at solar power. We need to look at nuclear power. We need to be thinking about conservation issues, crop cover. We need to be making sure that we have green areas that we're preserving so that we have good natural resources for us to enjoy, like the Ice Age Trail. So overall, I'm really inclined to prioritize this because I think it's also really important for our mental health to be able to enjoy the outdoors, to be able to be connected to the land is really important for our well-being.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions before closing statements. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Heather, and my question is, would you vote to allow or ban insurance companies from paying for the following services for minors: adding, blocking, or removing hormones, puberty blockers, surgical removal of genitals, and construction of artificial genitals?
Sarah, you're first.
So I'm not a doctor, and I don't feel like it's my place to make decisions about medical care. I don't want to legislate about that, quite frankly. I think these are complicated issues, and I would like to leave that to the medical professionals. That's what I'd say.
Well, I think the bigger question is at what point this individual is looking to have access to these types of treatments, that they do need to be in consultation if there's a young person with their parents. There is time to think about these things moving forward. It is something that people are more aware of these days. Whether we tell insurance companies that they can't pay for something like that, that's part of the negotiated plan that they're probably coming up with, and what you're going to buy for insurance. I don't think that we're going to legislate that you can't do that, but it has to be done at the appropriate time in consultation with the medical professionals and with their families.
Final question, please, directed to Joan Bowick first.
You're going to arm wrestle over this last one, maybe?
I won't
There's
fight.
a little more time. That one was kind of short.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. Okay, I'll duck down a little bit. Good afternoon, candidates. My question was gonna...
Name, please.
My name's Quentin McRoberts.
Thank you, Quentin.
And I live in Dane Township. I've lived here over half my life. I'm a Wisconsin boy, born and raised. My question was going to pertain to rhetoric, but I see you've already touched on it a little bit. We know that the southern border is something that's on everybody's mind. There's 20 million unvetted illegal aliens have come over the border. And it seems like a faraway problem for us here in Lodi. But it would appear that that problem is now encroaching into Wisconsin. I believe there's 2 cities that are sanctuary cities, and I think that's Madison and Appleton. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just received this last night, this Facebook
Question,
notification.
please, sir.
Yes. Tonight, the Sauk County Board will be voting as to whether or not they agree on receiving around 5,500 refugees. And that vote may or may not count. It's going to ultimately be Governor Evers' decision. If you get that call in the morning and a mayor of Portage tells you that 5,500 refugees are heading their way, what's your reaction to that? Thank you.
I don't know if it would be Governor Evers' decision. I'm not really up on that particular part of it. I do know that communities need to have a heads up when it comes to that. Can you imagine if 20% of those 5,000 were going to start going to school here in Lodi? It would be a major concern. We've seen that in some of the larger cities, that of course they're going back and asking the federal government for additional resources. I think that's something that there are legal ways that people can bring in workers to their particular communities. I know a community on the other end of the 14th Senate District brought in employees from another country through work visas, and that company worked with the school district, worked with the community, to help subsidize some of those services, looking at what the housing situation is. So this is going to be a real problem for many communities, and I just hope that if communities get into that situation, there is federal cooperation to help them through it.
I believe there should be a legal way to earn citizenship, and I don't believe that people should be getting into the country illegally. And so legal citizenship should be a process that is available to people that need to be protected from circumstances perhaps in their own countries. The reality is, I think there's some demonization of immigrants right now that I think is really horrific. There are good people that are working really important jobs in our economy, on our farms, in our service industries. They are working jobs that if we didn't have them there, we would have a crash of our economy. So we need to make sure that we do something that is logical, responsible, and it looks like both Democrats and Republicans are trying to do that at the governmental level for the U.S., and I hope they do pass that kind of legislation so that we do have a way to allow legal immigration to be available to those that need it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That concludes the question and answer portion of our program. Thank you for the excellent questions. And now we will proceed to the closing comments. Sarah, you are the leadoff hitter.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. Those were really good questions. Some of those I have not ever been asked before, so hopefully I did a decent answer for you. As I said earlier, I have never aspired to be a politician, but I sure have wanted to serve my community. I've been excited to be part of Lodi and have been grateful to be included in this community and allowed to bring new ideas, fresh ideas, bring the community together through Lift Lodi in particular, by having our community paint a mural in town to add a little artistic expression in town. These are things that I have really loved to do. And now I want to go from being a therapist who really at one level is really somebody that is helping people that are struggling. So I kind of think of it as pulling people out of the stream, keeping them from drowning. My goal now is really to help at a governmental level with policy. And by that I mean going up to policy and being able to help do things that help more people so that there are fewer people falling into that river. While mental health, we need to help have more access to that, we actually need to do more in our state to make sure that we have social freedoms, we have economic stability, we have physical safety, and I could talk about all of these. I think we need to make sure that we have good, sustainable housing, that we have middle-class tax cuts, that we have PFAS remediation, so we have healthy environments, so that we have Medicaid expansion, so that we have common sense gun laws, so that we treat our environment as the home that needs to be loved so that we have it for years ahead. And so that's what I'm hoping to do, is all these really value-based goals to help all of us, not just the elite few. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Bill. Thanks to the Lodi Optimists and Lodi School District and all the students who could have been doing something else in class today that came down for this. So what can Wisconsin do? The number one thing we hear is the economy. We need targeted tax cuts across the board to our middle class, $150,000 of income level for our young people, for our retirees, making sure that we can help them. I have been in the legislature for a while, but I have been seen as a bipartisan legislator, the most bipartisan of the Republican caucus moving forward. And the ideas that come to me, I take to the legislature. Something that is going to directly affect all of you that are taxpayers here in Lodi and young people in the future, and the budgets for the city and the county have to do with a change I got done regarding shared revenue that is paid by the Columbia Power Plant. As that closes down, you will lose that shared revenue. But the change I was able to effect over the last 2 sessions and get signed into law this year will save the county millions of dollars, provide services, and ultimately save all of you as property taxpayers moving forward. I have a myriad of experience that I would love to keep serving you in the Lodi community moving forward. I really enjoy coming here to school, coming to visit with your 4th graders, being a part of your district. I know the best ideas come from the people, and I think the number one thing that we have to do as legislators is we bring our experience, but we also have to listen. That's why I've brought forward a bipartisan Children's Legislative Caucus and led my own task force on suicide prevention. Thank you for your time, and I ask for your vote.
That concludes today's candidate forum. We'd like to thank our candidates, Joan Balwig and Sarah Kieski, and we congratulate you again on your candidacies and thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd also like to thank our friends in the media who are here today. This event has been live streamed on Wisconsin Eye, which is Wisconsin's version of C-SPAN, and it will be archived, so you can view this at your pleasure, or for people who aren't here today, that makes it available to them as well. So thank you to the audience members and our friends here at the high school, and for an excellent forum, and that adjourns today's meeting. Thank you.